welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is just gonna be playing around, doing a first impression on some Colourpop products. Not all of these are new. I have the Supershock Bronzer here that I've had on my list to try, a cream blush, as well as some new products. So 2 palettes, I have the 1111 as well as the Pretty Guardian palette. So if that sounds good to you, if you like first impression videos, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. But with all that, let's just get started playing around with some makeup. All right, so of course I'll have any of the makeup I'm not talking about today listed down in the description box below, but originally I wanted to pick up the Pretty Guardian palette, and then the rest of these just kind of got added on so I could get free shipping. I mean, isn't that how it goes? I've had this Supershock Bronzer on my list for a while. I know it hasn't gotten like the best reviews, and they just came out with a cream stick bronzer, but this is the one that I wanted to try. I think we're gonna start with the complexion products because I haven't decided if I want to do one look on each eye or if I want to do one full look, take it off, and do another. So I'm gonna decide on that, but let's start with the bronzer and blush. So the Supershock Bronzer retails for $9, and I picked up the shade I'll Bet. Here's what it looks like. Like I said, this is not a new product whatsoever. It is very creamy. That just caught me off guard. Here's what the color looks like sheared out, and then here's like a swatch not kind of blended out, and it's already kind of dried down to a powder finish. We'll test that out. Let's just see. I'm going to start with that. I am going to use a brush. I don't know who I am because I am a sponge lover, but I have my dirty sponge on standby. So let's just get started. I just had a feeling this was going to apply better with a brush, so I'm going to kind of use, this is a Luxie brush, but it's a little bit, you know, it's not too dense, it's not too wispy. I'm going to try that first and just see. I'm not really too concerned with the color. I mean, I think the color is fine. I mostly just was curious about the formula and how a Supershock would work with a bronzer formula. And so far, it's not too bad. It's exceeding my expectations because, like I said, I haven't heard positive things about this. I mean, it's a very light wash of color. Maybe that's just the shade I picked. It's not too warm. I don't mind this. It is just a little bit harder to pick up on the brush. Maybe I'll do the sponge on the other side just to see. I'm gonna go down my jawline, make sure my foundation's blended out. And then let's go in with the sponge just to see if that makes a difference. I feel like I'm really having to like rub it in to get color payoff on here. Yeah, I like the sponge. You know, there's just something about the sponge side. For me, it's just easier to have like an all-in-one tool. I know not everyone loves a sponge, but since I started, I can't stop. I also feel like it just blended out better than this side. Either way, like both sides work. It's just a preference, but for me, the sponge side is definitely the way to go. But this isn't bad, right? I mean, I don't think it's terrible. I was kind of just expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, just a product that didn't really work. I don't know, like, if it's something that I'll reach for. That's something I'll have to wait and see and come back and tell you in a speed review. I'll have my last speed review up above and down below, but anytime I do a first impression on products, I come back and just give more in-depth thoughts later on after I've tested it. Let's move on to the cream blush though. Again, I think this is their newest blush. I know they had the blush sticks, but I didn't really like that, or I didn't try it, but I wasn't as interested. And I picked up the shade TTYL, and it's looking a little bit dark. Here's what it looks like. Let me swatch it for you real quick. It feels very balmy, like Vaseline-y, and a lot more sheer than what the compact's looking like. So that's hopefully a good sign. This is very pink red though. Not what I don't know if it's gonna go with the look, but we'll test it out and see. Let's again use a brush on one side and use a sponge on the other. This one's a BK Beauty 113. With the brush, it's laying down some pigment. Okay, it's blending out. It's not as, the camera doesn't pick up blush ever as bright as it is in person, I've noticed. I have to really lay on the blush to have it show up. But it's quite nice. It's definitely a punch without being too much. So there's the brush side. Let's now do the sponge side. Let me find a clean side to my sponge here. Go in, here's what it's looking like. And I would actually say there's not much of a difference between the sponge and the brush. For me, the sponge just kind of picks up a little bit of that, I don't want to say it's sticky, but it definitely has it feels like a clear base, almost like a lip balm. And the sponge kind of soaks some of that up. So that's what I just like about the sponge side more. It's making it a little less shiny. So not bad. Kind of want to just go back in with the bronzer. Just re-intensify the cheeks. We'll see if this kind of fades down. I did not put any powder on my face. I did only just powder my T-zone, not on my cheeks, just to make sure with the cream products, nothing was really going to interfere. But all right, it's not my favorite. I like the bronzer more than the blush, I think. You'll have to let me know what you think, but the bronzer is definitely more my speed. The blush, I don't know. I just prefer something with more of a base. This is just a very interesting texture. I am now curious to see how it compares against the blush stick, if it's less of that balmy and more of a color payoff. But I'll keep you posted on this. I'm not upset that I picked it up. Now for the eyeshadow palettes, like I said, primarily I placed my order for the Pretty Guardian. Something about this palette really just caught my eye. And then of course I couldn't turn down a basic neutral palette. That's who I am. But I want to start with the Pretty Guardian. And this is based off of Sailor Moon. I know nothing about this. I think I talked about it in my Will I Buy It, and I called it a cartoon. I was corrected. It is not a cartoon, it is anime. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that. But how about I just call anything that's a cartoon or anime animation? Can we agree? It's an animation, and I didn't really watch a lot of animation growing up as a child. So here is what this palette's looking like. It's much more spring, which is kind of refreshing. I'm not disliking that. I don't know, there's something about this color story. I've picked up a few Colourpop palettes in the past, and I haven't loved them. I picked up the Pretty Please palette, and I'm blanking on the other one. They were just much more monochromatic, and so I wanted to give Colourpop another shot, but try more of a color story palette. You can see it's not just all the lavender one. in Lavender Haze. Sorry, it came into my brain. I tried the Pretty Please and the Lavender Haze, and it was just too monochromatic. So I'm hoping that I have better luck with Colourpop with a color story more like this. Now, I do think I'm just gonna take the less easy route, the unlazy route, and do 2 looks with this palette, 1 on each eye, and then I will come back and do 2 looks with the 1111 palette, just to give you some variety. Let me know down in the comments, like, do you prefer me to just do 1 look with each palette, just get a feel for the formula, or do you like seeing the variety that a palette can provide? Let me know, because I obviously want to make content that you would like, but I want to show some variety and what this palette can do, not just talk about whether I think you should pick it up or not. So I'm going to do 2 looks with this palette. This does retail for $22. When it's more of a Colourpop collab, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. It does not have a mirror, as you can see. I'm going to have to grab mine, but I'm just going to get started with a color story. And the first one I'm going to go into is Schoolgirl. I'm just going to lay this all over the lid. I'm going to try and make these kind of quick, easy looks. I don't have any primer on, just the shadow. So I'm just going to lay this all over. I'm going to use this like I would normally use this on a day-to-day basis, but just show you 2 different looks. Now I'm going to take a smaller blending brush and go in with, what do I want to go in with? Her Destiny. It's kind of like a periwinkle shade. And I'm going to just put that kind of on the outer corner here. It's not really going to provide depth, but I'm going to try and build it up just a little bit. These 2 colors blended in really nicely together. Pretty impressed, actually. Now I'm going to go in with Starlight on my finger. It's kind of like a very textured shade, and I'm going to put that all over the lid. And I don't want to really pack it on. I kind of want to keep that sparseness and have it just kind of be like a really pretty topper shade. And then I'm going to really quickly go back in with Schoolgirl, try and get some of that coral back in. Like I said, this is going to be quick and easy. Back in to get some of that periwinkle. Just bring that color back from on top. And then for the lower lash line, I kind of want to tie in the periwinkle I put on the outer corner, Her Destiny, and use Starry Sky, which is, I can't tell if it's a matte with shimmer or if it's a shimmer. It's like a blue and it has gold flecks in it. And I'm going to put that on the lower lash line to bring in some color. I may have just gone overboard. That's okay. I'm going to go back in with Schoolgirl and just kind of blend it out just to kind of tone down the blue. I'm not all the way into a colorful lash line just yet. And that's it for this first look. I think that it's just a really light, pretty, colorful, not too colorful look. Starting look number 2, I kind of want to play more with these purples here. So I'm going to use this, which is like a beige with some glitter in it. And then like this more lavender with this shade, and then I'll decide on the shimmer after. So let's start with that beige shade, which is Save the World. Again, I'm just going to place this all over the lid and crease area as a base. I did use my switch, but it might have a little bit of color left on my brush. That's all right. Now going into that lavender shade, which is Secret Powers, I'm going to put that kind of lower in the crease just to add some shape. And to bring more purple, because then I'm going to go into Girl Power, the dark purple matte to add that to the outer corner for my depth. And this shade's the only shade that's not as pigmented as I was expecting. I was expecting a lot more pigment from this shade. It's showing up, but it's very sheer, which purples can be hard to do. I would just think that maybe Colourpop has their purple formula down by now. It's very powdery. Try and build this up a little. I mean, it is a light look. I don't know. I think it should. That's the only shade right now that I'm struggling with. It's not hard to use. It's just not as pigmented as I think it should be. Kind of just gonna blend out that corner there. All right. And for the shimmer, I kind of want to keep it light. So, because I was deciding between Always There, which is this kind of duochrome shimmer. How dark is this? Like, that's pretty. Or the shade Twinkles. Ooh, that's very crumbly. All right, I am going to use the shade Always There, and then I'm going to top it with Twinkles because I don't want it to be too dark, but Twinkles is pretty crumbly. So that's just going to add like a nice purple base to the look. I'm going to be very careful with this shade. It's not a pressed glitter, but it's very similar to Starlight, just even more textured and flaky. It is pretty though. Wow, that's really pretty. Just scattered on the lid, like this scattered sparkle effect. I take back everything I said. I like this shade a lot. All right, I like this shade a lot. It looks really pretty on the lid. Kind of a pain. Do your eyeshadow before your base, but I have to say, like, this gives something really special and unique. I don't think I have anything like this actually that really just is such a transparent base but has like those little flakes in it. Maybe I do. I'd have to like look for it, but you can see like the fallout. Let's just finish up the lower lash line real quick and then we'll be done with this palette. I think I'm gonna keep it simple and go in with the light lavender on the lower lash line, and then I'll deepen it up with the darker lavender in the outer corner because I'm liking just how light this looks. But I want to make sure that it's cohesive. Here's both looks with mascara. I didn't want to put liner on. I kind of just liking how this looks without any kind of liner. Just like very light, fun, youthful. I don't think, but it doesn't look like too childish. I think this is really, really nice. Obviously, I don't have a lip on, I just have lip balm. So like the look's not complete. Ignore that. But here's a look number 1 and look number 2. You can see fallout from that Twinkle shade. I've already talked about this, but other than that, quite impressed with this palette. I've used most of the shades. I used all 3 of these. I didn't use that one. I used this one, this one, this one, this whole row actually. So the only shades I didn't use were 3 of them. Not bad for a 12 pan shadow, and I can't express this enough. I'm really happy with the looks I came up with. Like, this exceeded my expectations for sure. So I'm going to take both of these looks off, and then we will play with the 1111 more neutral palette. Moving on to the 1111 palette, I kind of just wanted to squeeze this into this video, even though I don't think it's that exciting of a palette. It is pretty though. I mean, I'm not mad at it. I like it a lot. They did just now come out with their Cloud 9 palette, which I kind of like a little bit more, and that's how they get you, but I'm not gonna pick that one up unless, again, it's just like an add-on to a different palette that I want. So let's do 2 looks with this one. I don't think I'm going to use this Reflex shade because it does look like a pressed glitter and it does feel like one. Well, maybe not, but this is also not my kind of shade. That's probably my least favorite shade in the palette anyways, so I probably won't be using that one. Again, no mirror. This one retails for $18 versus the Sailor Moon, which is $22, and it's also a little bit bigger. So the pan sizes are a little bit bigger. If you care about that, I don't really care either way. I would prefer that Colourpop just do all their palettes the same size, and I'm fine with this size as well because they have lower price points. And don't pick any of this, just as a side note, don't pick any of this up for regular price. Coming up on holiday time, Colourpop's going to be doing a ton of sales, and I think when I pulled up prices before filming this video, they were doing a site-wide sale now. So just wait. If there's not a sale going on, sign up for their emails, follow them on Instagram, whatever, and get them on sale. But let's now dive in. I think I'm first gonna do a more warm tone, to me warm tone eye look. And I did put concealer on my lids just because I took off those other 2 shadows to just kind of cancel out what was left on my lids, so there is like somewhat of a primer. I'm gonna go into Good Thoughts and run this all over the lid because it's just kind of like a basic shade here, and I don't need to be too precise with it. This is probably going to be very similar technique to Sailor Moon, just with different colors, because this kind of technique is my bread and butter, and I just want to see how it would work for me on the everyday. So now I'm going to go into Right Path, because that's a little bit more of the warm tone shade. This one's very powdery too. I don't remember Colourpop shadows being this powdery, but like when you're putting it on the eye, not getting as much pigment. I don't know if I've just been trying more indie shadows as of late. I'm not hating it. It's easy to work with, really, other than just the powderiness when you can kind of build up the shadows like this. I just don't remember it being like this, that's all. I think that's good enough. I'm going to use the darker shades for liner, but just go back and blend this out a little bit more. I don't think anyone's really doing intricate looks with this type of palette anyways. Maybe you are. Very nice. So now I'm going to go into Manifest It, which is kind of the gold, and just put that on the lid. This is going to be easy peasy. Just kind of like a look you can do every day if you have to get ready really quickly. Something that doesn't take a lot of effort and time. Going back in with Right Path and just kind of deepening up the outer corner, re-intensifying it from that shimmer. And that's about it. And I'm going to do the lower lash line, which is just going to be taking Good Thoughts and Right Path, the 2 mattes we used, and running them on the lower lash line. And that's it. I'm probably going to add liner to this. I think I'll do the second look first, and then we'll do liner at the same time, because if I had to guess, I'm going to do liner on both. Not a groundbreaking look at all, but here's what it looks like on the eyes. I think it's a very simple, easy palette. So now let's go into more of like these pinky tones here and do more of like a cooler neutral look. So starting with Lucky Babe. And just putting this all over the lid again. I'm gonna take it kind of high because I do have just hooded lids, but for some reason I have a lot of space between my brows. And then protection's not super dark, so I'm gonna take that with the same brush, even though it's quite like a fluffy brush. I'm gonna try and just place that lower to add a little bit more interest to this look, but not in the outer corner, more in the crease. It's just gonna bring a little bit more pinkiness versus the brown. And now I'm gonna go into Perfect Harmony, which is more of the cool tone brown, to deepen up the outer corner. Really wanna tap your brushes off. I know it's not always good, like maybe use your finger if you have really nice expensive brushes, but because the shadow is so powdery, you'll get fallout everywhere if you're not tapping your brush off. I'm gonna do the lower lash line while I'm at it, and I'm actually just gonna use Protection, which is more that pink, instead of that first shade that I went into. And then the darker brown to connect it. And now I get to choose a shimmer. I don't know if I want to use Major Changes here or if I want to use Balanced. Let's see. I think I'm going to use Balanced, the pinky one. Do something a little lighter. I think so. Sometimes I use both, but I'm just feeling the pink, especially because it feels a little bit darker than this look. And this is like a very smooth, kind of just traditional shimmer. Like a very pretty ballerina pink. But I do now need to go back in to that brown and just make sure that they're blended together. Okay. I do want to add liner to both of these looks. So I'm going to use Divine, which is kind of like a matte with sparkle, but I'm still going to use that as liner. I'm going to add mascara and I'll be back to show you the finished final two looks. Here are the two looks complete with the 1111 palette. You have more of like your gold, warm tone on this side, cool pinky tones on this side. I didn't do too much of a liner, just to kind of define the lash line a little bit. So now that I've tried all this out, let me give you my first impression thoughts. Least favorite by far is for sure the blush. If you know the texture that I'm talking about, then you know what I mean when it just feels very Vaseline-y. I don't love it. My skin, you know, my cheek doesn't feel sticky, so that's good. That's giving it bonus points where I'm not immediately gonna just write it off, but it's not my favorite cream blush formula. After that, I would actually say it's neck and neck for the 1111 and the bronzer. I didn't hate the bronzer as much as I thought. I actually thought this was quite nice. This to me is like what I wanted the e.l.f. putty bronzer to be like, and I don't really like that bronzer. So this is kind of filling that void for me. Nothing bad to say about this. The 1111 palette, you know, I just feel like for a neutral palette, there's too much work involved. I don't like that there's kind of like this glittery shade here. For some reason, I got more fallout with these shimmers than with the Sailor Moon palette. I'll talk about that one next, but like I still had some glitter when I took off my two looks from that Sailor Moon. So yes, like there's still some remnants, but this, like there's more fallout from this palette. And for a neutral palette, I just don't feel like you should have to do a neutral palette, an easy eye look before your foundation. If I'm going to do a colorful look, use indie shadows. I don't mind doing my eyes before my base, but when I'm doing just like a simple transition, darker outer corner, shimmer on the lid, like I don't want to be fussing with that before I do my foundation. That's just me. I found these shadows to be quite powdery. Again, versus the Sailor Moon, these mattes are just so much more powdery and they don't have that much payoff on the lid, which is good and bad, just depending on your preference. It is nice to have less pigment so you can kind of build up the depth that you want. This shade in particular that I used, like, it can be scary, and when you swatch it, it looks deep, but when you actually put it on the lid, it's very sheer and you can build it up. So if you're afraid of darker colors and having your look get out of hand very quickly, that's a positive for you with this formula. However, I can't help but say, like, even for $18, if you get it on sale, like, that's a great price. But I personally think get like 5 or 6 Sydney Grace singles easily could dupe this, and it would be way better quality than this palette. I'm not mad that I have it. I'll keep it. Like, I'm not going to declutter it right away, but I could see it like in a year or so. I could see this being on the chopping block. It's just not a special enough neutral palette for me to keep it around. I have other neutral palettes that I love, and I have other Sydney Grace singles that just perform better if I want to get this type of look. Now, the Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon palette, I'm really happy with this. I think you could probably see just by my reaction how much I loved the looks that I did with this. This just really surprised me, and I'm really happy I went out on a limb and picked this up because Colourpop can be a little bit difficult for me. It takes a while to get to Europe. That's where I live, so it takes some time. You have to spend $60 to get free shipping, which you don't have to do that, of course. I get it. It's like a marketing tactic, but why would I pay $20 for shipping instead of just like picking up the $18 palette? You know, I'd rather just get more product. So I'm happy with this. I love this palette a lot, much more than I was even anticipating. Like, I knew that I liked the color story and I knew I wanted to test it out, but I was not expecting to like it as much as I do. I'm not typically like a blue lover, but without these two shades, like, I love every single shade in here, but I used this on the lower lash line in my first look and I quite liked it. I thought it was really nice. So I have nothing bad to say about this palette. I would absolutely recommend it. The only downside to this is that it's usually not included in promotions because, like I said, when I was looking at the Colourpop website today, they were doing a site-wide sale and this was excluded. So I don't know if this will stay in stock before it's included in sales or if it'll always be excluded. So just know this, you probably won't be able to use any kind of discount coupon on. But I love it, and I'm glad that I picked it up because me and Colourpop have kind of just been, we haven't been friends as of recent. The last 2 purchases I had from them, I pretty much decluttered right away. But that's all my thoughts on my little mini Colourpop haul. You'll have to let me know below. Did you pick any of these up? Do you like them? Do you love them? Like, what do you think of this 1111 palette? They're kind of going into this very spiritual, astrological kind of theming. I know that that's really trendy right now that they released their Cloud 9 palette. So I'm interested to see your thoughts on that, if you're into that or not, and what your thoughts are on this bronzer, because like I said, I didn't hear great things, but I quite liked it. I'm not mad at this at all. So let me know your thoughts, but that's where I'm going to leave you all today. I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.